Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a phenomenon that really took the globe by storm, Death Note.
Absolutely. A story that just gripped everyone with its intense psychological thrills and those deep, kind of unsettling moral questions it throws up.
Exactly. And we want to focus on one core element, the Shinigami. Pose this question. What if the gods of death weren't what you expected at all? So if you've ever wondered how creators build an entirely new mythology, maybe from scratch, or the layers beneath a captivating story,
Then you're definitely in the right place.
yeah, you're in for some surprising insights. We're going to explore where the Death Note Shinigami came from, what they truly are, and maybe why their unique portrayal makes the series just so impactful.
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's unpack this. When we think death gods, many people might imagine these ancient, terrifying figures, right? Maybe pulled straight from old myths.
Right, that's the common image.
But in Death Note, there's something, well, entirely different, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to put it, because, what's fascinating here is how Oga and Obata didn't just grab a monster from folklore. They basically engineered a whole new species, a modern mythos, you could say.
Engineered, I like that.
Yeah. The Shinigami in Death Note are so meticulously defined from their own world, their realm, right down to these really complex rules governing them. They were crafted really from the ground up for this story.
And let's talk about that world, the Shinigami realm.
Yeah.
It is definitely not your typical fiery hell or, fluffy clouds afterlife. It's almost bleak.
Oh, bleak is putting it mildly. It's shown as this desolate, really dilapidated wasteland. You've got floating rock formations, chains, skeletal remains everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not a place of active torment. It's more a realm defined by this pervasive apathy, just profound monotony. You see the Shinigami just gambling with bones, lounging around listlessly. It's like a cosmic purgatory of pure boredom.
Right. And this ennui, this incredible boredom, that's actually the main driver for their actions. It's not some grand evil plan, but just this desperate search for entertainment that pushes Ryuk, our main Shinigami, to drop his Death Note into the human world.
Precisely. Imagine an eternity of that level of nothingness. You'd be desperate for a distraction, too.
Totally.
That existential boredom, it's the critical engine for the whole series. It's such a chillingly mundane motivation, really, but it sets these truly catastrophic events in motion.
And there's a figurehead, right? The Shinigami King.
Yeah, governing them all is this enigmatic Shinigami king. He's described as supremely powerful, like a cosmic legislator. He manages the Death Note distribution. He can even amend the rules later on, forbidding the sale of the notebooks.
Okay.
But he's also described as being, too immense, too magnificent for humans to even perceive. So he kind of grounds their existence in this weird, almost bureaucratic, cosmic legal system.
Speaking of their existence, their actual look, their physiology,
Yeah.
it's deliberately unnerving.
Oh, yeah.
You look at Ryuk, right? Lanky, spiky, that really unsettling grin, or Rem, who's much more skeletal. The artist, Takeshi Obata, apparently consciously moved away from initial rock star concepts.
He did, yeah. He wanted them to be truly grotesque, non-human.
Yeah.
Their physical forms were designed to be alien and monstrous, really reinforcing their detachment from human aesthetics, human concerns.
Right.
And their existential state kind of mirrors this spiritual stagnation, too. They don't need to eat or sleep. Their bodies have sort of degenerated or maybe evolved to a point where their existence is just reduced to basic self-preservation.
But then you get these little quirks, like Ryuk's famous craving for apples,
Yeah.
which he claims affects Shinigami like cigarettes or alcohol affect humans. So even these terrifying death gods have their mundane little vices.
It's almost comical, isn't it? But it grounds him in this strangely relatable way. A touch of unexpected Shinigami deity, maybe.
Shinigami Day, I like it. Okay, so beyond apples, what about their powers?
Well, beyond that, they have some standard supernatural abilities. Flight, obviously those impressive wings can appear at will. Intangibility, some level of regeneration. But then there are the Shinigami eyes.
Ah, the eyes. That's such a pivotal transactional power, isn't it? Yeah. It creates so many moral dilemmas.
Definitely. Humans can get the ability to see anyone's true name and their remaining lifespan just by looking at them. But
Big butt.
big but. The cost is half of their own remaining life. It's a heavy price, one that Light Yagami, our protagonist, consistently refuses to pay.
Whereas others, like Misa Amani, jump at the chance.
Exactly. Without hesitation. It really shows the different values and desperation levels.
Okay, so these Shinigami, they seem almost unkillable, right? They sustain themselves by writing human names, absorbing lifespans. Is there any way to truly end one of these death gods?
There is, yeah. And it's this really profound paradox, actually. The main way a Shinigami dies is by using their death note specifically to save a human they've developed an emotional attachment to.
Wait, so an act of love?
Yeah.
Or care?
Precisely. An act of love or care that directly contradicts their normally self-serving, detached nature. When they do that, they just turn to sand and dust, and their remaining lifespan gets transferred to the human they saved.
Wow. That's poetic almost.
It is, and it's not just some interesting bit of lore, it's a major plot point. It dramatically impacts the story, especially when we get to Rem.
Okay, so that's one huge limitation. Are there others?
Well, yeah, they're also subject to a kind of legal code within their own realm. We're told that extreme violations can lead to death, executed by the Shinigami King himself.
So even gods of death have rules and an ultimate authority they answer to.
Seems so. It adds another layer to their structured existence.
The Shinigami King might lay down cosmic law, but the real legal battlefield in Death Note seems to be found within the pages of the notebook itself.
Oh, absolutely.
It's way more than just a magical kill list, isn't it?
Yeah.
It functions almost like a complex legal document. Clauses, subclauses, even loopholes.
Exactly. The Death Note's core mechanics seem simple. Write a name, picture the face, death follows. But the precision of those rules, like the 40-second default window before a heart attack, or the ability to specify details of the death within 6 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, that detail aspect is terrifying.
It immediately highlights the immense power and also the terrifying opportunities for manipulation that someone like Light Yagami gets his hands on.
And that's just scratching the surface. There's this whole comprehensive code, right? Over 60 rules revealed throughout the series.
Yeah, tons of them. Like the one stating that if you relinquish ownership, you lose all memories associated with the Death Note. That's not just a clever plot device. It's absolutely integral to how Light manipulates the game, even manipulating himself at one point.
Right. His master plan hinges on that rule.
So it's not just a killing tool, it's a system. It's like this weird cosmic bureaucracy of murder.
And that complexity raises the question, doesn't it? Why make it so intricate, so codified?
I think it transforms the conflict. It makes it an intellectual war. Light's true genius isn't just in planning murders, but in his ability to interpret, exploit, and even add to this legal code. Remember, he gets Ryuk to write fake rules in the notebook.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. And chilling.
And then there's the rule stating that a human who uses the notebook can neither go to heaven nor hell. That adds this whole layer of metaphysical consequence beyond just, physical death. It implies nothingness.
Annihilation. So Light's mastery of these rules is key. But there are also rules governing the Shinigami-human interaction itself, right? The terms of engagement.
Indeed. There's a contract of sorts. A human who picks up a death note becomes possessed by its original Shinigami owner.
Possessed, okay.
Yeah, until that human dies, it creates this intimate, though often pretty antagonistic, partnership. That possession dynamic really shapes the whole human experience with the note.
And a really crucial rule for the plot. Any human who touches the death note can then see and hear its Shinigami.
Right. That complicates secrecy massively for Light. And eventually, it's how L's task force confirms that these supernatural beings actually exist.
But maybe the most philosophically significant rule is that principle of non-interference. Shinigami are, in principle anyway, neutral observers. They generally won't help or hinder the human owner unless they're specifically asked, or unless it serves their own interest, perhaps. Like Ryuk constantly refusing to help Light by revealing L's true name with his eyes. Exactly. And it's not because it's strictly forbidden. It's because Ryuk has no obligation to, and frankly, he finds the struggle between Light and L far more entertaining to watch. He wants front row seats to the drama. Pretty much. And this mandated passivity, maybe that's the real genius of their design in the story. Because it means the moral responsibility for every single death. It rests squarely on human shoulders. Absolutely. It makes it a truly human tragedy, or perhaps a human crime story, not something dictated by gods or demons. The Shinigami just provide the means. Okay, so we've really explored how meticulously Death Note built its Shinigami. But let's shift gears a bit. How does this version compare to, traditional Japanese folklore? When we talk about Shinigami, a lot of us probably picture these ancient Japanese deities. Is that historically accurate?
Well, it's a really common misconception, actually. The term Shinigami itself is surprisingly modern.
Really? Modern?
Yeah. It doesn't really show up in classical Japanese literature. It only starts emerging during the Edo period, maybe 18th, 19th centuries, in things like puppet theater, bunraku by playwrights like Chikamatsu Monzaemon.
Huh. So what was it like then?
Even then, it was often quite ambiguous, more like a poetic metaphor for despair or the inescapable pull of death rather than a specific defined entity.
That's a fascinating twist. So the idea of a personified god of death, like a grim reaper figure that came later.
Largely, yes, especially as Japan engaged more with Western culture, particularly after World War II. That skeletal soul-reaping image kind of merged with and definitely shaped some pre-existing Japanese ideas about death spirits.
Okay, so the key takeaway here is that the Death Note Shinigami, the ones we see with Ryuk and Rem, they're very much a modern interpretation. They're not adapting some stable ancient myth that's always been there.
Precisely. They had a lot of creative freedom because there wasn't one single established image to work from.
So if the actual term Shinigami is modern, where did the older ideas, the sort of mix and match origins in Japanese religion that might have fed into this concept come from?
Well, you can trace threads back to Shinto, for instance. You have the primordial goddess Izanami no Mikoto. After she dies in childbirth, she becomes the queen of Yomi no Kuni, the land of the dead.
Right, the underworld.
Yeah, and when her husband, Izanagi, sees her decayed form and abandons her there, she gets furious and vows to kill 1,000 humans every single day.
Yeah.
So she definitely establishes herself as a kind of proto-Shinigami figure, a bringer of death on a mass scale.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about from Buddhism?
Buddhism contributes too. You have figures like Yama, known in Japan as Enmush. He's the king and the main judge of the underworld. And his demonic servants, sometimes called Oxhead and Horseface, are occasionally seen as types of Shinigami, carrying out sentences.
So enforcers of a sort?
Kind of. And there's also a specific Buddhist concept, the Murtumara. This is a type of demon that specifically induces death, often described as a malevolent force that can possess humans and instill in them a desire to commit suicide.
Wow, okay, so that sounds very different from the neutral observers we see in Death Note.
Oh, completely different. The dominant image you get from pooling these various folkloric bits and pieces is much more like a malevolent, often parasitic spirit. Closer maybe to ghosts, yurei, or even vengeful spirits on Rei.
Parasitic, how so?
Well, these folkloric Shinigami aren't neutral guides at all. They're often depicted as these entities drawn to places associated with death and tragedy murders, suicides. Their goal sometimes is seen as perpetuating cycles of death by possessing the living.
Possessing them, like the Murtumara idea.
Exactly. They might latch onto individuals, amplify their negative thoughts, their despair, and actively drive them towards suicide. This idea of possession, of active interference and malice is really central in a lot of the folklore.
Okay, so what this whole survey reveals then is there's no single coherent Shinigami myth in traditional folklore. It's more like a chaotic buffet, maybe?
Yeah.
A collection of different death-related spirits and ideas.
That's a perfect way to put it, a chaotic buffet. And that ambiguity, that lack of a single definition, gave Oba and Obata incredible creative liberty. They could pick and choose, or mostly just invent their own version from the ground up, tailored perfectly to the specific story they wanted to tell in Death Note.
Right. So let's put these two versions side by side then, the sort of traditional folkloric ideas versus Death Note's take. What's the most striking difference, and how does that fundamentally shape the narrative?
Okay, yeah. I think a crucial point here is that the choices the creators made were incredibly deliberate. They weren't accidental. They served the core philosophical questions of the series. They essentially invented a new species of being to fit their narrative needs perfectly.
And the key shift is?
The key shift, I'd argue, is moving from that active malevolence you see in folklore, the possession, the driving to suicide, to the passive observation we see in Death Note.
You mean, like we discussed, the Shinigami provide the tool, the Death Note itself, but the actual will to kill, the decision, that comes entirely from the human.
Precisely. That single shift transfers all the agency and, crucially, all the moral responsibility directly onto Light Yagami's shoulders. The story instantly becomes about human choices, human culpability. not about divine intervention or demonic temptation in the traditional sense.
And Ryuk, as the main Shinigami we follow, is the perfect embodiment of this indifference, isn't he?
Absolutely. His defining trait is that detached observation. It's a radical departure from any kind of folkloric malice or duty.
He drops the note purely, as he says, to alleviate his own crushing existential ennui. He's just a spectator. He's not participating in the moral horror unfolding. He's just watching it.
Yeah, his constant refrain, humans are so interesting, it really positions him almost as an audience surrogate. He's just consuming the drama like it's entertainment, which is, incredibly chilling when you think about the scale of death involved.
It really is. He's almost like a tempter by omission, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
He's not a classic Mephistopheles figure actively trying to corrupt Light. He just provides the means and then watches.
Exactly. Light's megalomania, his belief that he's becoming a god, that's entirely self-generated. Ryuk's action, dropping the note, it's born of apathy, not some grand cosmic plan. It's like a bored office worker kicking an anthill just to see what the ants will do.
Wow. That's a bleak image.
It is. Light isn't chosen in any meaningful sense. He's just the random, accidental product of a bored god's trivial amusement.
Yeah.
And the catastrophic consequences are left entirely in human hands to deal with.
Okay, but then we have Rem. Rem is the total opposite, really. The emotional anomaly. She's a complete subversion of that typical Shinigami nature.
She really is. Her entire character arc is built on this deep protective love she develops for Misa Amane. And that's such a profoundly human emotion, isn't it? It directly contradicts the selfish, detached nature that's supposed to define her species.
And that capacity for love, it wasn't even originally hers, was it? It was inherited.
That's right. It came from another Shinigami, Jaelus, who actually died saving Misa's life before Rem even met her. And Jaelus's death established that crucial rule we talked about earlier. A Shinigami dies if it acts deliberately to extend the lifespan of a human it loves. It's this tragic, self-sacrificing loop built into their existence.
Light, in his cold-blooded brilliance, completely exploits.
Oh, absolutely. He sees Rem's love not as a virtue, not as something noble, but purely as a critical vulnerability, a weakness to be leveraged.
And he engineers that whole scenario, forcing Rem to kill El and Watari in order to save Misa, knowing full well it will trigger that fatal rule and kill Rem in the process.
It's a truly chilling example of Light's manipulative genius. Exploiting a god's one weakness, its capacity for something akin to human emotion, to eliminate his greatest obstacle.
Her sacrifice is such a key moment.
It really is the thematic climax of that first major arc of the series. It's this powerful demonstration that something seemingly illogical, an emotional variable like love, can completely shatter the most brilliant, cold-hearted, logical plans. And it shows that even a god of death can be undone by the most human of feelings.
So ultimately, the Shinigami in Death Note, they serve as this really powerful thematic foil to the human characters, don't they?
Definitely. Their pointless, endless, eternal lives stand in such stark contrast to the finite, intense, high-stakes lives being lived by characters like Light and El.
Their empty immortality kind of makes the conflict between Light and El, which is driven by their opposing ideals of justice, feel so much more profound, maybe.
I think so. The Shinigami have literally all the time in the world but zero purpose. The humans, especially Light and El, they have this driving purpose, these huge ambitions and ideals, but only a limited time to achieve them. It highlights the value, or perhaps the burden, of human consciousness and mortality.
And they really underscore the series' whole exploration of justice and power, too. The Shinigami are the source of this incredible godlike power, the Death Note, but they themselves are completely amoral. They're indifferent to human concepts of justice. They don't judge.
That detachment makes it crystal clear that good and evil in the world of Death Note are purely human constructs. The central conflict isn't some cosmic battle between light and darkness. It's a terrestrial war fought on Earth between two opposing human philosophies of justice. The Shinigami just provide the stage and the weapon. The play itself is an entirely human production.
You could even read their relationship with humans, particularly Ryuk and Light, as a kind of addiction metaphor, couldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Light's clear dependence on the power of the Death Note, that high he gets from wielding it, from judging the world. And Ryuk acts like the passive enabler, maybe the dealer, who supplies the substance, but takes zero responsibility for its effects.
Right. And Light's brief period of amnesia when he gives up the notebook and reverts to his clean, morally upright self.
It's like a period of sobriety, isn't it? It starkly reveals the depth of the corruption that the power inflicted on him, or maybe awakened within him. When he gets his memories back, the addiction instantly returns.
So wrapping things up a bit, we've journeyed from these sort of nebulous, often malevolent spirits you find scattered through Japanese folklore to the very highly codified, almost bureaucratically defined, existentially bored Shinigami of Death Note.
Yeah, the creators didn't just adapt a myth, they really ingeniously deconstructed it and then rebuilt it from the ground up to perfectly serve their narrative themes.
And by making that crucial shift from active malice to passive boredom, and from vague supernatural powers to this intricate legalistic system of rules,
Oba and Obata brilliantly placed the entire moral weight of the story onto human shoulders. It's all about Light's choices, L's choices, Misa's choices.
Right. And Ryuk, the ultimate detached observer, and Rem, the tragically emotional anomaly, they end up serving as these perfect catalysts and foils. Yeah. They highlight the profound, terrifying consequences when absolute power falls into human hands.
Absolutely. And the cultural impact. You really can't overstate it. For a whole global generation of anime and manga fans, the image of a Shinigami is now probably irrevocably linked to Obata's grotesque designs and Oba's characterization, bored, apple-eating spectators of the human condition.
Death Note truly redefined the Shinigami for the modern world, didn't it?
It really did. It created its own definitive version.
So as you, our listeners, reflect on this deep dive, here's something to consider. If the gods of death, the beings who literally manage the end of life, are truly indifferent, does that make our human choices more significant, or maybe less? What does it say about our own definitions of justice and morality when the cosmic arbiters simply don't care at all?